Prototype Playtime.
Nano Battle is a small box tabletop combat game that crosses paths with art toy Keshis in place of traditional miniatures, and this is a prototype copy of a basic starter set, a Hexagon Rumble Pack, on loan care of the game's designer Tony Robles. These prototype parts are, for the most part, custom made and not entirely indicative of the final production components, but they have let me play a whole metric smack of solitaire matches, as well as a couple of face-to-face games in person at home. Also, this thing's launching on Kickstarter on November 1st, 2022, and that might be kinda critically important if you're watching this video fresh, because that's potentially tomorrow. Anyway, the feature pieces of this pack are the Nanoids, a pair of Keshi minifigures representing one of currently 4 potential unique designs if stretch goals pan out for the upcoming Kickstarter campaign. These 2 white and black Nanoids aren't 100% final hues and durometer, but they do showcase an alternate battle damage sculpt that will be worked into pack collations at a ratio of 1:3. The design and delivery is solid, reminding me of fun indie toy times in the artist block at NYCCs of the early 2010s, but these are also game pieces. The white and black Nanoids each have a personal 6-sided die with matching color number combos on each face for gameplay reasons to be explained. Along with a pair of clear cubes and some booklet and card-based documentation, you also get a set of hexagonal tiles that make up the battlefield and 8 cards for each Nanoid to go along with their personal die. Aside from the ID and spark gauge cards, the meat of the paper play is represented in each Nanoid's 6 command cards. You'll already note a lot of multi-function stuff going on here, as this game follows the small box gaming ethos of pack the game into every centimeter you've got. Multi-function command cards set up information on the back of the spark gauge and variable color information on each die face. It does make a nice first impression seeing all of this stuff practically erupt out of a pocketable tuck box. Anyway, Nanoids have got a faction symbol on their backs. You'll note it's the same for these ones. Well, actually, I happen to have a pair of resin figures on hand too, and each one of them has a different faction. The new one's also a pumpkin ninja, and P.A. would really like to see that stretch goal come to fruition, I can tell from his video, but aesthetics aside, another reason to root for its existence is that it would introduce slightly crunchier gameplay. You see, when your Nanoids land on a face-down hex tile, they flip it over. I've rolled dice to start determining starting initiative after randomly laying down some tiles for battle, by the way, to start demonstrating setup. I'm multifunction as well. Anyway, pay attention to the center symbol on each hex, because if it's a white design on a black background, it's a faction tile. However, that doesn't mean a ton if your own faction doesn't match it. See why the Pumpkin Ninja is important? The more factions on the table, the more varied the shared decision space becomes between players. If everyone's got the same faction, you're chasing the same tile, but if one of you is a Pumpkin Ninja, you're chasing a different tile, and stuff gets branching. Flowing on with that setup I already started setting up, each Nanoid's ID card and spark gauge can merge into a miniature character dashboard with a clear tracker cube. If you find yourself bumping this a lot, you can invest in some D10s. Also, if you're playing solo, shuffle the wild Nanoid's command cards into a face-down deck, because that white strip in the middle of the card, those are AI commands to follow. The basic loop is that on each turn, you and your opponent lay down a card from your hand face down, or out of the deck in the case of a wild Nanoid bot player, then you flip them over and reveal them. The lowest number activates first with a roll lowest dice off in the case of a tie. You can choose to spin your played card 180 degrees before activating if you want to use the ability on the other side and add a small extra level to the bluffing game at play. This loop continues until you have no more cards in hand. At that point, the last card you played is disabled and removed from the game, and you pick up the remaining cards to begin the cycle again. If all your command cards become disabled, your Nanoid goes wild. Those disabled command cards are shuffled into a face-down deck, as you saw before, and if that deck then disables all of its cards, well, that poor Nanoid really needs to take a nap. At the end of the day, you're just trying to take the other Nanoid's health from 10 to 0, and you do that with command cards. So let's take a quick lap through all 6 of the dual option command cards in quickest to slowest initiative order, starting with number 1. Dodge is a hard counter to being attacked in any way, making you unable to be targeted. Its flip side is Boost, which will pump either the power or range of your next activation, lessening the risk of this being a wasted card play, and also letting you make the decision, hey, you know, I'm going to take the hit because I'm going to hit you harder next next turn. Number 2 is Dash, which allows you to move one space on the board, revealing tiles as you go in the early game, or just moving around in the later game. The other option on card number 2 is Endure, which specifically counters special effects, push, and pull. In the case of this mirror match, it's mostly to counter push. Entering the mid-range of initiative values with number 3, you can launch a basic attack at a range of 1, which means any adjacent tile to your nanoids. Its flip side is Guard, a temporary armor boost that also makes your armor check a little bit easier to pass. You see, every time you defend, you roll a die, and if you fail the armor check, your armor just doesn't work. With Guard, it is harder to fail that armor check, and the armor works better. The slower end of the initiative mid-range, number 4, starts off with Run, a movement card based on your current range value. This card's other option, Swap, is based on the idea of having teammates. This does kind of make card 4 the least valuable card in your command hand in a 1v1 Rumble Pack game. But then, if you and your opponent both know that, and someone doesn't make it the first card that's disabled, that can, just mess with your head. Let me tell you from experience. The second slowest card, number 5, lets you launch your Super, which, in the case of this pack, is a rocket punch that comes with a push effect that can bounce your target against the edge of the map for bonus damage if you can't push them back any farther. Its flip side, Sprint, is the previous card's run effect with +1 temporarily added to your range stat. Finally, card 6, the slowest of the bunch, lets you use your Mega or your Ultra. The Mega is a beefy attack, while the Ultra is a beefier attack with a chance for mutual bonus damage. But you can't use the Ultra unless you're standing on your faction's tile. Speaking of that faction tile, when you're standing on it, you gain a plus or minus modifier to your attack power depending on your nanoid's color. Black and white nanoids' colors constantly change, always matching the currently showing face of their personal dice, so leave the die alone when you aren't rolling it, and bear in mind that every roll could change the nanoid's color. There will be add-on packs of nanoids with fixed color identities to mix things up a bit and provide numbers for team play. You can also get that color modifier if you're standing on a different faction tile that's adjacent to your own faction's tile, and you risk forming a temporary alliance by rolling your die. If you fail the roll, your alliance doesn't work and you take a damage, so the risk has got to be there. It's got to be some good numbers. Also, some of these tiles, instead of a faction symbol, are just going to show a plus or a minus. That means when you land on them, they heal you or hurt you, depending on what they show. It's worth noting that during setup, you don't heal or take damage for starting on one of those tiles. Just because you reveal it, you didn't move on to it, you started there. That is a difference. I asked about that. Since the game is solitaire friendly, thanks to the white strip of text on each command card telling you what to make the wild nanoid do, I'm also going to run through a quick solo game now, using only the contents of a single hexagon rumble pack. For this solo game of Nano Battle, I'm going to shuffle up the hex fields, and I'm going to lay out the hex fields. I don't know what these possess within them other than hexes. I'm going to do this as randomly as humanly possible, and I just meant dealing them to my right. So, as always, every time I play this solo, I am going to be taking the fight to white with my buddy Black over here. So that means this is my hand of command cards, and that means that white is a wild nanoid. So I'm going to shuffle up their command hand and keep it face down. Now we roll off to see who goes first as far as taking a stance. I am going first because I rolled lower. Also, my color is now gray. My opponent's color is now blue. So I'm going to go here because this looks better on video. Flip this over. It's a faction that I am not. So now I can place the wild nanoid because I'm playing solo. I can just choose to place them here, here, or here. It's cinematic. I'll put them across from me. Oh, that's bad. They've got our faction symbol. So now the wild nanoid could technically shoot their biggest attack at me on turn 1. That's freaky because it's one of these 6 cards, so I don't even know if they're going to do it. That means I'm going to start moving. So, when you're playing solo, the first thing you do, you choose a maneuver. And I want to move. I'm going to take a risk. It's a 1 in 6 that they'll shoot me in the face. So, I'm going to say that my cards are all upside down, and I want to look at these functions first. I'm gonna dash. Move 1 field. Hopefully I find one of the healing fields. So, I have dash, the wild nanoid. Their first play is, thank goodness, run. So, I have the lower number, 2 to 4, so I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna dash straight up to the middle. Let's see what's here. That's another faction symbol. So I could do a faction alliance thing, take a chance if I want to shoot my Ultra at them. But in the case of the Wild Nanoid, since it's the AI part of the card I'm looking at, it says move towards the closest face-down hex, otherwise target matching faction node. So there are 2 face-down hexes. There's no rule about rolling to decide, because that would involve introducing a roll that changes the color of the Nanoid. I don't want to do a roll, so I'm going to do a heads or tails. Heads is if the cannon symbol is up. Cannon symbol is up, so they're going to go up. Oh, and they got the healing square. Now, this is the one that heals you +2 when you go onto this hex, not square. They're full health, though, so that's not going to do anything yet. That does mean they moved off the faction node. I believe they still would, because it said move towards the closest face-down hex, otherwise target a matching faction node. So, there were face-down hexes, so the AI wants to go discover them. That is how a Wild Nanoid do. I also realized that I come up with a house rule for this already. I didn't have to flip that thing. I forgot about my house rule. They're showing a 3 on here. I generally, when I have to decide a direction, I say 1, 2, 3 up, 4, 5, 6 down, depending what their die is already showing. So, either way, the house rule stands. Now, I want to get onto that faction hex, because I want to make some noise. The problem is, I'd need to blow my super to sprint 1 to do that. So I'm going to blow my super. We'll see. If they don't dodge, then I'll shoot them. If they don't dodge, I'll shoot them. Let's see what they do. Ah, perfect! Alright, so they flip dodge. AI says, when targeted, dodge. If not, then when a revealed card is rotated, boost instead. So if I rotated this, I'm going to rotate this. So I'm going to rotate this. That means they're going to rotate that. Because I don't want to shoot a super they're going to dodge, so I'm going to rotate. Oh wait, I'm going to rotate. So they're going to do this first, technically, because they're initiative 1, but the way the AI works, they can skirt around things a little bit. Comes over to me, you were going to dodge if I target you, so I'm rotating. Then, in reaction, their thing will rotate to boost, which means that their next activation gets either +1 power or +1 range, whatever helps them the most. In the meantime, I get sprint, which is I get to run with +1 range this activation. That changes my range of 1 to 2. Run is where you can move up to X fields, X being your range. It is a shame that that's not just written out on that card. You have to have run handy, but you also are going to have the card handy anyway, so it's not that big a deal. So I have a movement of 2. If you move over a face-down hex, you flip it up. So I want to discover more battlefield, so I'm going to go 1, 2. And when I landed on this, I flipped it over to reveal the +1. Would have healed me 1, but neither of us have taken damage yet. And now I'm in my prime position. This is actually a really good setup for solo with these 2 in the mirror match, because I basically have the faction hex here and healing hexes on either side of me. So I can just start unloading, hopefully. I wish to unload, because now I know the dodge is out of the Wild Nanoid's command deck, so I'm going to go big. What are you going to go? You're going to go first with dash. Which means you are wasting your boost, because that's only for your next activation. AI for this says, move towards the closest face-down hex. If none are face-down, endure. There is one that's face-down, though, right next to you, so you're going to move to that. And it's the -1 hex, so you take a damage by stepping on that. Fool! Foolish Wild Nanoid whose brain is a stack of 6 cards! I've outsmarted you! Come over to my activation. Because I'm on the faction tile, I'm going to flip this over to Ultra. Now, my Ultra is beefy, and I'm going to focus on the card even. It is my base strength of 1. It's +3 attack, and then when I use it, the Giga Blast, I roll a die, that's what that symbol is. On a 4-up, it's another +1, and I take a damage, because it's like it overloaded. So we're going to do that roll. This is also going to change my color, which is a little scary. I rolled a 1, so I don't get it. I remain gray. So on this faction hex, I actually get the plus that's on here. And this is, because I'm on 1, which is gray, I get +1. If I was blue, I would be getting -1, so I'm happy I'm +1. That means I'm shooting for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage. This is a mirror match, so we have the same cards. 5 damage is coming towards white. White does an armor check. On a 4-up, their armor fails. They rolled a 6, their armor fails, so they take 5 damage, putting them at 4 health. That's tasty. Now, what am I going to do next? I just shot my biggest gun. There's a chance they might shoot their big gun at me, which is frightening. So, I'm going to play dodge. What are you going to play? AI? Attack! Alright. That means I get to dodge. You avoid being the target of any attack, super, mega, and ultra this activation. Alright. So. That's what mine does. You know what, though? Attack has a range of 1. I'm in range 2. So, on my activation, because I'm number 1 to 3, I go first, I am going to flip this to boost. Then we come over here, attack. Target nanoid, attack target nanoid with the fewest sparks. If no target is in range, guard. No target's in range, so they are going to guard, which gives them +1 armor, and their armor check fails on a 5 or 6 instead of a 4, 5, or 6. So, they are reacting pretty well to the fact that I want to shoot them with a much bigger attack, which is what I'm going to try to do. What are they going to do? They're going to shoot at me with their big attack. Alright, firefight, 3 to 6, I go first. They have guard up, though, so I gotta remember that. So I am shooting at them with boost on. I am pumping up my range to 2. 1, 2. I'm on gray, so it's +1 power, so that's 2 power at range 2 coming at them. If they roll a 5 or 6, they take 2. If they roll a 1, 2, 3, or 4, they take nothing, because their armor is at +1 this turn from the boost. But they rolled a 6, so their armor broke, and I do 2 damage to them, bringing them down to 2 health. Eat that. That's a 40k ass. 40k. Whoa, I got 5+ invulnerable armor save. I rolled, or no, I got a, this is more like a 2+ invulnerable armor save. Oh, I rolled a 1. Actually, it's a 3+ invulnerable. 40k math. Fun. Anyway, they're going to shoot at me now. The Mega has a range of 3. When you're playing with the single pack, rumble pack thing, the range of 2 is the entire arena, so you can't really get out of the way or play range games outside of the basic attack when you only have this available. If you have more hexes to have a bigger map, then you can start playing range stuff, which I would like to try someday. Anyway, they're shooting at me for base power of 1, the Mega is +2, so for 3, does my armor break or not? Oh, no, yeah, it's past, never mind. I was sitting here thinking, did I forget about the +1, but I didn't, because I shot at them for 2. Anyway, my armor breaks on a 4, 5, or 6. I rolled a 3, my armor doesn't break, so I block 1. They're shooting 3 at me. They're not on the faction tile, so they don't get the pluses. So that is just 1, 2, 3. I block 1, so I take 2. I'm at 8 health. I got pretty lucky so far in this game, because I managed to land that Ultra. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. My last play is going to be run swap. Now here's a little tip. There's another tip. If you're playing this single Rumble Pack versus AI 1v1 fight, or if you're playing against a person, card number 4, run swap. This is the card to play last, which means it's the first card that's going to be taken out of the game on the reset. That's because swap doesn't do anything in a 1v1, and run. With these two characters with a range of 1, this is just move 1. So this is always the card to play last in an AI fight. I used to say it was always the card to play last against a person, then I played against a person who I told that to, and then they didn't play this last, and then they shot me in the face with an Ultra for 7 damage, and even though they lost that card on the reset, they were pretty well set after. They messed up my mind. Anyway, I'm going to try to run. What are you going to do? You're going to go for your super. So my run happens first. I'm going to move up here to the +2 hex to heal 2, taking advantage of this wonderful... This is an optimal setup here. Your faction symbol and the healing hex is like a little fortress. So I heal 2. Now you're going to shoot your super at me. This is going to be... I'm a little bit safe, because I can still get pushed back. I'll explain in a second. So the super comes in with +1, so that is for 2 damage. Does my armor break on a 4, 5, or 6? I rolled a 6, my armor breaks, so I take the 2 damage, which I had just healed, thank goodness. And then I get, with the super on here is Rocket Punch, which does a push, it pushes you back 1. If you can't get pushed back 1, like if he shot me from here, I'd just get smacked into the wall and take another damage. However, having talked to the designer in emails where I peppered him with so many rules questions, Oh boy, it's probably worth collating them all into the initial FAQ for the game, I don't know. I get pushed back one because I have a hex I can move to that would increase the range between us, which is this one. So that saved me a little bit. Now, we're on the end of our first cycle. We've played all of our hand. So last card played gets removed from the game. Last card played gets removed from the game. Reshuffle the wild Nanoid and pick my own hand. I'm going to set this up so the card backs are all the same. Even though I don't remember which one's flipped in the heat of the moment, I prefer to maintain my perfect randomization. And now I have decisions to make, because now I have to figure out which of these do I play last and thus lose if this goes another cycle. However, I only have to do 2 more damage to this individual, and they only have 1 dodge. So technically, if I just spam them, I should be able to pull this off. So we're gonna start big. I'm a play my Mega. I'm gonna play my card number 6. Do you flip the dodge? You don't! I'm about to kill you! So I'm shooting for, base 1, +1, because I'm green right now, and on this hex is the faction hex, so I get +1, so that's 2. +3 is 5. Do I go up to 6? On a 4, 5, or 6, yes, I take a damage and I go up to 6 damage. Does your armor break on a 4, 5, or 6? It breaks. You take 6 damage. You have 2 health left. I put you to 0. One other little mechanic here I'll just show you, just before we finish up here, while I have you here. Let's say that I was on this tile, another faction tile, but it's only adjacent to my faction's tile, and I wanted to take advantage of the color bonus. Now, obviously, if I was on red, that would be a -2. I wouldn't want that. But let's say that I was on pink, and I was like, no, I want to use this color bonus. I'm on pink. I'd have to roll a die. And on a 4, 5, or 6, I get to temporarily ally the factions and use the bonus. Alright, so, I did it! I can ally and use the bonus, but I'm also green now! So I only get +1. The white and black nanoids, you can see on their cards, because they've got that rainbow thing going on, their color changes to whatever the face of the die is whenever you roll the dice. That is very interesting, because this is more for a team thing. There are going to be mono-colored versions of them in all 5 colors, other than gray. Maybe the gray one will be like if you got a resin one, I don't know. But these ones mean like you always know what color you are, and so you can use that as more quote-unquote perfect information. In the 1v1, I think it is absolutely clutch for the gameplay experience that they are constantly changing colors, because that's more variance that you're dealing with the smallest version of the package. But this is the smallest version of the package, so I hope that when this Kickstarter launches, they do hit stretch goals to get other faction members in, because currently, having teams would help, having a bigger map would help, but having additional different character cards would also be huge, because I think there's a lot of potential in here for small-scale, short-term gaming that has a lot of dueling crunch if every character is slightly different. Some of them are color shifting, some of them are monocolor, you have a bigger map, maybe there's more faction tiles out, the layout of the map obviously randomizes every time. There is something going on here I actually kind of dig, and I know with the way that I am currently tabletop gaming, I would not be satisfied with just a Rumble Pack. I think I'd be getting, like, at least these guys' Rumble Pack, someone else's Rumble Pack, and their multicolor packs. So I'd have, like, 2 teams of, what is that? 2 teams of 7, to have slightly more varied games with, like, a double-sized field. That's the crunch I'm looking for. But this is still pretty cool, considering this is meant to kind of be the starter pack, and it all fits into the one thing. Although, well, no, I don't think, with a lot more cards in here, I can speak from experience, you can't actually jam more than maybe 3 of these in. So, yeah. Interesting for what it is as the starter set, and I'm eager to see more. Demonstrably, this is a game made for expansion modules, and I've got a prototype Faction Surge pack on hand to share a taste of that as of this recording. It's got 2 different modules within, the headlining Faction Surge mode, and the supplementary Nano Gear mode. Faction Surge mode features translucent overlay cards that can be literally added on top of a Nanoid ID, altering its stats along with one of its attacks when you activate a Super, Mega, or Ultra on top of your faction's home tile. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Nano Gear mode allows you to sacrifice a command card activation to, instead of using that command card's effect, draw a random gear card from the stack, rolling a die to determine if you receive the top half or bottom half, and adding that to your nanoid to give it further options and abilities. One thing I do appreciate is that with all of this being card-based, you can take these expansions and just pile them into the Rumble Pack tuck box to maximize the gameplay potential of one pocket-sized dose of Nano Battle. And in the end, having played a bunch of solitaire as well as a couple face-to-face matches with the Rumble Pack alone, I think there's a lot of potential to Nano Battle once expansions and a couple more factions and or characters are added to the mix. At its core, I've rather enjoyed the brief shot of tactical decision space, especially the simultaneous face-down and reveal bluffing card play against a human opponent, and found that the game does not outstay its welcome. However, I am hungry to know if there's something with more mouthfeel when the map grows, the nanoids and factions vary, and you're operating a team rather than a single figure. A highly portable and solo-friendly map combat game with multifunction components is right up my alley, especially if it has a load of levers to tweak and sockets to swap, and doubly so when it's couched in some neat minifigures that don't wholesale balloon the game as hard as your average miniatures on a board game Kickstarter tends to. Like, I still want to paint some of these. Also, I wonder what the experience of the story mode add-on will be. Like, will it just be a gauntlet of tweaked solitaire fights, or something a little meatier? I am fascinated by what this little engine is doing. Nano Battle launches on Kickstarter on November 1st, 2022, so if you're checking this out as an occupant of the correct coordinates in space-time and you think this all looks and sounds fun, hit up the campaign page that's linked in the description of this video. There's also a full website with basic digital gameplay, an account system, and etc. And soon I'll be live streaming some more solo gameplay with expansions added in, so tune in for that if you have more questions. And again, you're in the right coordinates in space-time, like that live stream's going to be happening in the next couple days. If you're from somewhere in the future, though, there's a VOD. You can go watch it. And if you're from somewhere in the past, congratulations, your machine works. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Evangelist. That's some tabletop prototype playtime. And hey, it's also my first time trying to properly film an analog game. Won't be my last, either. Board games are toys, too.